All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good Shabbos. So, everybody's eyes this week on Chicago. And, well, Hyde Park? Highland Park. And, and everyone's asking, how could the kid get to be so crazy? I mean, this year there were, I think, 300, the past 6 months, there were 300, so report, 300 shootings in the U.S. So, Rebbe actually spoke about this in 1981. Hashem a few days Thomas for bringing this week, this Sunday night, is usually Thomas full of times. Rebbe spoke about this idea back then. Let's take it back a bit. In this week's parsha, take it back a bit further. This year marks 100 years since 1922, when the Bolshevik Revolution, and you had all the major yeshivas in Russia closed down, and any observant Jew wanted to get out of Russia, do whatever they could to go anywhere, leave Russia. So the only one who decided to stay in Russia was the Frierdiker Rebbe, who took 9 Hasidim. He made a private underground meeting with them, and he said, the 9 of you plus me is a minion. We're a minion, 10, and we're going to make a pact that we're going to do whatever it takes to keep Yiddishkeit in Russia alive. We're going to fight whatever it takes. It doesn't matter. Back then, they were closing as many yeshivas as they could. That's why the yeshivas ran away. They were closing mikvahs. They were closing every type of Yiddishkeit you could have. In Russia, they were closing. So the Frierdiker made this pact. And we know from my mother-in-law's father fought the Frierdiker Rebbe's army. They would go town to town, have underground yeshivas, build mikvahs. Zadie Meir, you named after, yes. And so many Chassidim were involved in this underground operation. Taking it this week's parsha, we had the story there of Miriam, the well of Miriam. Hashem tells Moshe in the beginning of the 40 years of the desert. Hashem tells Moshe, Yidden were thirsty. Hashem tells Moshe to hit the rock, and we got water from the rock. And now, at the end of the 40 years, in this week's parsha, so Hashem tells Moshe to speak to a rock, and we know that whole episode how that unraveled. The question is, why are we taking water from a rock? We should daven for water, and it will rain. We'll have water. Why from a rock? We don't find it anywhere else in history that we should specifically get water from a rock. Well, I don't know. You hit a rock, you heard about when Hashem told Moshe, and even only the first time Hashem told Moshe to hit the rock, second time Hashem told Moshe to speak to the rock. But the question is, why from a rock? Why specifically a rock? And so the Rebbe explains that in next week's parsha, we have the story of Bilam and Balak, when Balak hires the king of Moab. Balak, he hires Bilam, the non-Jewish prophet, to curse the Jewish people, and instead of curses, blessing comes out of his mouth. And the first thing he said was that I see them, they're rocks, and they're like rocks and they can't budge. What's he saying? So Rashi tells us, doesn't mean he's seeing like rocks. I see their ancestors stubborn like rocks. And the Rebbe says it means that when they saw where we kept Yiddishkeit, we kept our Judaism, we kept it like a rock, meaning we're doing it and we don't budge, just the way we do it, and that's it. When we're strong like a rock, that's what Bilam saw. He saw us being strong like a rock, and that's why he said I can't curse them. And so what does it mean taking water from a rock? So the Rebbe explains that water represents Torah. It says Torah is compared to water. Just like water comes from the highest place and it keeps on going lower and lower, wherever it can get to, it will go. Same thing, Torah comes from the highest place, comes from Hashem's wisdom, and it comes down, even to us, our little brains could learn Torah. And so, where do we learn Torah from? Where does the Torah come from? Where does the Torah stay from? From the rock. Where do we get the water from? From the rock. From being like a rock, from being strong like a rock. From being, this is who we are, this is what Yiddishkeit is, we don't budge. That's how we get Torah to stay. And so the Rebbe said in Tafshin Mem Aleph, 1981, the Rebbe spoke then about there was some type of event, a shooting that took place in a public school. And the Rebbe spoke then that was this weekend. The Rebbe said that what we're missing in this country is a connection to a higher cause. So the children they're not taught about there being a higher cause, a cause of all causes, a higher being. And that's when the Rebbe pushed that there should be, yes, a prayer in schools, a moment of silence, a moment to think of something which is greater than them. And the Rebbe said it's specifically through that, through remembering that there is something higher, that we become like a rock. And when we're like that rock, then water and Torah can come through us, and we can have normalcy in the world. And the Rebbe said this in 1981. That's how many years ago? That's 41 years ago. 41 years ago. The world hasn't gotten any better today. So I think we have a lot to go back to what the Rebbe told us and follow it. And surely, well, we hope that Hashem's not waiting for that. But surely if we do that, Mashiach will come anyway. We daven Mincha on page 148, 3 Mincha.